Hello everyone, welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. Today we're working on template number 7 in our cutting workbook, and you'll see it looks a little different than some of the other templates that we have looked at recently. And always on these I give you the first cut. So the first thing we're going to do is cut 1/4 inch off of the 6-inch side, and then we're going to cut a second 1/4 inch off. This actually says second cut, and on the final version of the cutting template, that will be obviously the second cut. And then we have these 3 pieces left. 2 of them are layer number 6, and one of them is a 5.5 by 2-inch piece, which is very versatile to use for all different kinds of things, but we're going to use it for a long piece today. I want to show you this paper that I got at Hobby Lobby recently, so it should still be available. It's called Floral Leaves, and I thought we'd just thumb through it right quick because I wanted to pull a piece out of this pack to cut and use with you today. Now this cutting template works really well with an overall pattern. So I'm going to choose this little green leaf pattern for today. And I have a little piece of ephemera here that I thought would work well with it color-wise. So I thought we would start with that. I'm going to move my template. Well, I better move my coffee out of the way, hadn't I? Sorry, hang on a minute. Okay, get organized here, Julia. So the very first thing we want to do is make that first and second 1/4 inch cut. So I'm going to cut it at 5 3/4. And at 5.5. And then I'm going to turn it and cut it at 2. So that would be at 4 actually. And then I'm going to cut this one at 4 by 2 3/4. So I should have 2 equal panels here that are 4 by 2 3/4. And it's just as simple as that. Very easy cutting template for this card. Now I have 2 card sketches. This one and this one. When you're using 2-sided paper, you can stack them up this way, but when you're using single-sided paper, you'll probably want to make 2 cards out of these 2 pieces because, you know, if you stack them up like this, that doesn't really do a whole lot for a card background, does it? So let's work on these later, and we'll work on this one first. I have some samples today, and I think because I have plenty of sample cards for this particular template, I'm just going to go ahead and make some cards because I need some cards in the studio, to be honest with you. I gave a bunch away the other day. One of my goals for 2025 was to find some donation places that would accept handmade cards, and I found a couple. So that's kind of nice. Now, on this one, it's designed to do a panel, a full panel, and then 2 little strips on either side. And on this example, I nudged those 2 little strips up next to my pattern because this was double-sided paper, so it was easy to have them differentiate by having the pattern change. But on this one, I want to separate them out. And a nice way to do that is to get in your scraps and see if you have a little strip in here from a prior cutoff that is approximately 1/4 of an inch and use it as a spacer. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this first one down, and I'm going to use my grid lines to put it in the middle of the panel. Now, you wouldn't necessarily need to put it in the middle if you didn't want to. If you wanted to leave room for a stamped sentiment or whatever, you can move this around very easily. But for my purposes today, I'm going to put this in the middle, and I'm going to use my grid lines to do that. And because it's a 2-inch panel, that's very easy to accomplish. Right like that. And there we go. And then I'm going to take this piece and just lay it down next to it as a spacer. And what you see here is, I'm going to move it up to this side. What you see here is a little difference in the cutting on these 2 strips. And the reason for that is because I cut one of them on one side of the line and the other one on the other side of the line. But hopefully by the time you space them out enough, it won't make that much difference in the final outlook of the card. But you can see now how I'm using that little spacer to help me get these lined out very nicely. And then we'll trim these little ends off. And this card front will be ready to embellish. This is the only waste you'll have on this cutting template. And out of the 8 templates that we've done so far, this is pretty much the only waste that I have had, with the exception of the little points that I cut out of some flags. So that's pretty good for us, isn't it? I think it is. So I'm going to put "All things are possible with God" as my focal point on this card. I'm going to trim these little nibs off. Wish there was a better way to do these commercial die cuts than to leave the nibs on them. But that's the way they come, so you got to kind of deal with what you get sometimes. And I think I might put, I was going to put maybe some ink around that, but let's see how it looks without it. It does need something, doesn't it? Let's just see how a little bit of ink around the outside of that looks, shall we? This is my little brown ink pad that I have on my desk. It's just a Memento Rich Cocoa, and it's a nice little brown. I'll just drag a little bit on this, and we'll see if that doesn't help bring a little bit more differentiation on this. There, right like that. Yep, I think so. Very nice. I'm going to put this up on some foam, and then I'll show you another card that I have made with this same pieces on this cutting template. And that is this one right here. And you'll notice that I put some Love for Lizzie peel-offs in as my spacer on these. And please notice that this is an all-over pattern as well as this one. And it works very, very well that way. When you have a double-sided paper, you can kind of move your paper around where you get the direction going that you want to. But with single-sided paper, a non-directional print is good to use with this template number 7. But I'll put some additional little gems on here perhaps, or maybe a little bow. Let me see if I can find something to make a bow out of that will accent that piece from over here in my ribbon drawer. Yeah, maybe one of these will work for that. I'm going to get my bow maker out. You know, I've told you all about this 10-second bow maker now for years, and the last couple of times I looked for it online, the web page is no longer functional. So if you didn't get it, I'm afraid you're not going to get this one, but there are plenty of others out there. This is kind of a little lace border ribbon, So it has a flat side and a scallop side. So we'll see how that looks for this in a little bow. And I believe I'm going to put that on with some glue dots. And I think I might use 2 because this is kind of a cotton ribbon, and sometimes they don't hold quite as well. I'm going to put this right down in that white stripe there. And there we are. I might put 3 little dots up here. In fact, let me see if I can find some diamond dots that are about that color. I think I have some. Well, let's just see. I think maybe that one. Perhaps this one, I think, is the better one. So I think we just put 3 little gems up here. Maybe right here. Or maybe right up here. Let's put them up here and see how they look. These little diamond dots don't take very much glue at all. And I'll show you a little trick I have for straightening out my little gems in just one little second here. Well, I can get it to turn over. Come on now. There we go. You can see how those are not exactly very straight. And what I like to do is take my metal ruler and just drag it in and straighten them up, right like that. See how much better that looks? I think it does. So this card's pretty well finished then. Very nice, very simple, easy to make card, and it utilizes a little bit different format. I think you could probably use this panel on a mini slimline card as well, and then leave this as a 1/2 inch to go on the inside, and that would give you your full 5.5 inch on your mini slimline card with a 1/2 inch strip inside as well. But since we're trying to focus this little series on A2 size cards, I thought this was a good use of that extra panel and give you another idea for how to use that 2-inch panel. Let's look at these other 2 pieces, because these are going to be individual cards now rather than the card sketch, which looks like this. The sample card that I have made is a double-sided paper, and it looks like this. So it works that way with the double-sided paper. But I think this time we'll get 3 cards out of it. And this is what I did with the samples for the 2 panels that I had when I cut the panel that we just looked at here. So it makes 2 basic, straightforward panel cards. This one is elevated up on this one is elevated up on foam, and it has a 3/8 inch border around the outside of the layer. This one has a 1/4 inch layer on the outside, and it's mounted flat on the card because I knew these flowers were going to take up so much additional space. But let's see if we can create a couple of cards using these 2 panels. And I think I will go ahead and look for some of the same color family, and maybe a little piece of crumb cake would work with that just fine. Let me see if I can find one. Well, I must have finally run out of crumb cake, but I found this texture paper, and that will make a nice background for that, won't it? I think it will. Let's see how big this piece is and how much we want to cut it back. So this looks like it's a full-size panel, and the number 6 layer is 4 by 2 3/4. So I'm going to cut this to 4 1/4 by 3 and see how that works. I might put a little bit of brown around the outside of our pattern paper just to give it a little more definition. And I have another little small sentiment die cut that I got from Hobby Lobby recently. Let's see how it looks on this card. Live with joy. I like that combination. So let's use it, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of brown ink around the outside to kind of hide any nibs that might be hanging out with us. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but Cordelia is over playing with one of her many, many toys that she has. And I believe I'll put a little piece of this lace underneath that. There we go, right like that. And then I'm just going to glue this panel down flat. And I'm going to run over some of that ribbon with a little bit of glue, just to make sure it stays good and stable. And here's a very nice card ready to go out the door. This would be a nice card for a wedding gift, I think, to enclose with a little in a bridal shower. Okay, so there's number 1. Think we can put some gems on this? I do. What about right here? I'll do the 2 outside ones and then the middle one. And then do a real quick line check with my ruler, just to make sure they're kind of straight that way. And there we go. Right like that. Card's done. Let's look at this other one. See what we've got. This I'll put back with my scraps because it is not large enough to use on this other panel. And I'm wondering if a large panel will work. I am going to put a little brown around the outside. So you can tell that just because these templates give you a complete use of a 6x6 paper, they don't have to be blah and they don't have to be bland. You can jazz them up however you want to. Let's look at that one. Now, I was seeing over here that I have some scraps of another project left. Let's see how this goes color-wise. There's that one and this one. This has a little bit of ink on it, but I think it'll be all right. Let me see if this wider one looks a little better, perhaps. No, I don't think so. I'll leave that one in there and put this one perhaps about there. I'm ready to glue this down on this full panel. There we go. Equal border all the way around, and that's one of the benefits of using an A2 size layer. And now, because I don't know if you can see it or not, but I have a little bit of acrylic paint stuck right there. I'm wondering about doing just a little bit of ink drag on top of that to kind of give that just a little bit of extra dimension, perhaps, and to kind of hide that acrylic ink. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe a mistake. You know, you never know till you try it, and then sometimes you can't back up on it, but that's all right. If you're using a little scrap to begin with and you mess it up, then oh well. It's better to use a little scrap than it is to use something that's a really precious piece of paper to you. Let's glue this down, see whether we like it. I'm pretty sure we will. I'm putting extra glue on this because of the texture on this paper. I think that makes a very nice little accent on this card. It's a little short, but that is okay. I'll flip it over and rub it from the back. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's see if there's anything in here that we could probably use for a little, maybe a little focal point. Well, here's a piece. That might work. It's a little bit large, isn't it? I think there's a smaller one in here. Ooh, here's a butterfly. Let's see what else we got in here. There's a colored one. No, those colors don't work, do they, at all? Let's see. There's a possibility. There's a possibility. It's a little too much color there, isn't it? Let's see if there's anything else in here. This is the trouble I always have when I get these little die cuts. I never can figure out how to use them. It's just the nature of it for me. Okay. Well, I actually kind of like this one. And I think I might put it up on some foam and pull it over this way so that edge there disappears just a little bit more. I think I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it. Yes, I am. And I'm going to cut my foam into smaller pieces because I need to work my way around this just a little bit. So if we do this way, it's really kind of from here over. So I think this is going to be a pretty card. There we go. This one may not get a sentiment on it at all. We just use that for the inside. And then I'm going to put some glue on this panel that doesn't have the foam tape on it so that we can get it to stick to the textured strip that we put on. Good way to use a few scraps. There. Oh, I kind of like that, don't you? I do too. And then I think we'll try this one, but I want to get rid of that little white core a little bit because I don't really care too much for that. Nice butterfly in that bunch of die cuts. And I believe I will use the little trick that Natasha Foote, or perhaps Lucy Patrick, I guess, has showed us all. And that is to roll your edges around a little round popsicle stick she uses, but I don't have a popsicle stick, so I'm going to use my little blender, foam blender here. And I'm going to put a little tiny piece of foam up underneath those little spots there. So that when I glue it down, then I can tack the foam down and the wings will still stay kind of curled up that way. I hope you're enjoying this series with the templates. I have been enjoying making it for you. But I think I'm kind of about ready to kind of move on a little bit, aren't you? Okay, let's see how that looks. I like it so far. I'm going to take the end of my tweezers here and kind of hold that butterfly down for just a second until it catches and gets solid. And a little sentiment like this might be just about perfect for that card. It looks like a sympathy card to me. Right down in there, don't you think? I do. I'm going to put a little bit of brown ink around the edge of that. In fact, I might, let me get my piece of scrap paper out here. I might just kind of tone that white down a little bit. Now we'll see how it looks. May have been a mistake, and that's okay. This was a piece of scrap paper to begin with. So let's see. No, I kind of like that. I think that'll be fine. Right like that. Let's glue it, and this little piece down here needs just a tiny little piece of foam under it. For hanging off the edge there. Put a little bit of extra glue because it's going on this shiny surface. And there we go. Right like that. Isn't that a pretty card? Now, let's see about putting that up on card base. That card completely covers that, doesn't it? Just almost. It's a little bit too long. And again, that's cutting on one side of the line or the other. That happens. So all I'm going to do is to trim this off just a smidge. And I mean a smidgy. Just a little smidge. Not much at all. And I believe that should probably do it. And it will be straighter than if I used my scissors to cut it off. So let's just glue this on. And this is a nice little sympathy card ready to go when I need it. I dropped my tweezers, and now Snickers is after them. Hello, Puss. You are such a silly girl. Yes, you are. And there we go. Very nice card. Out of a 6x6 piece of paper with absolutely no scraps. So here are the 3 cards that we made today. I think they're quite lovely. And it all started with this nice little green background. And here's the 2 card templates. And of course you'll know that if it's not a double-sided paper, you'll need to make 3 cards out of this template. But there they are. And here are another couple of cards using that same template. And here's yet another set of cards using that same template. So I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.